Hey, thanks for tuning into the Zelos Podcast, the show that's all about the pros behind the pros. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder, and this week, Sam Black is joining me for this conversation. Director of Performance for the University of Tennessee Soccer. That's women's soccer, and playoff season's kicking off. So before we get underway, remember you can go to my website, rockysnyder.com, for continuing education, workshops, online courses, podcast archives, blogs, and a whole bunch more. Check that out at rockysnyder.com. This episode of the Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere, with just an iPad or an iPhone, and no wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ's markerless motion capture in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, analyzing posture and gait mechanics, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit them at kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. You know, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Metabolic Elite be one of the sponsors of the Zelos Podcast. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. I've seen a lot of supplements and performance enhancement things over the years, but they pair clinical experience with innovation, like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption, like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, and trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. So learn more at metabolicelite.co. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, Z-E-L-O-S. And before we get underway, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder, S-N-Y-D-E-R. Click subscribe, give us some comments, tell a few friends, enjoy the show. Well, Sam, thanks for coming on. You know, I've had quite a few individuals within women's soccer, WNBA as well. I won't say it's all women, to be honest, men, coaches, and so on. So I guess you're going to be welcomed into the horde here. First of all, thanks for coming on the podcast. And you're just about to get underway with the playoffs for NCAA. So it makes me even more grateful that you've taken some time to put aside for us to have this conversation. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's definitely a busy time of year. We also have a 2-week-old at home, so life is definitely busy at the moment. And we have an opening round of the NCAA tournament here in Knoxville tomorrow night. So excited for that. But yeah, life's definitely busy. If you hear a little bit of a cold in my voice, that's why.
My
Not getting
gosh.
all the sleep I used to. So
I can't believe you're on your feet right now either, man. That is, well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
A baby boy or baby girl?
Baby boy.
Baby boy. And do you mind if I ask his name?
His name is Kieran.
Kieran.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Takes you right back to your roots. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Okay, well, this is good. We could talk about sleep deprivation, not only for the athletes, but for the coaches as well, I guess. But you guys are having your first match in NCAA Division I playoffs for women's soccer, and it's a home match, and you're going in ranked as third, you told me.
Yeah, we're the number 3 seed. So how the bracket works is there's 4 number 1s, 2s, 3s, sort of like that. And so we're a number 3 seed, but we have a tough first round game against North Carolina, who are obviously a huge program on the women's side. But we played them first game of the year this year and beat them here at home. So we just have to go out there and do it again tomorrow night.
Right on. Okay. Well, let's hope history repeats itself there.
Yeah.
But speaking of history, give us a little history of yourself. Obviously, that is not a Tennessee accent I'm hearing right now. How did you land with the Tennessee Volunteers, the Lady Vols, so to speak? And yeah, how did you get here?
Yeah,
Where'd you come from?
so I'm originally from the Isle of Man, which is a small island in the Irish Sea. Grew up there. It's an amazing place to grow up. It's an amazing place to live. But it is a small place, and you kind of know everyone who you grow up with, especially if you play sports. You know everyone who plays your sport. There's 6 high schools. It's 13 miles wide, 33 miles long. So it's not the biggest place in the world. And I wanted to keep playing football, or soccer as we call it here, and pursue an education. So I came out to the US, as many, many Europeans do these days. Ended up at McMurray University for a year, then transferred to Belmont University in Nashville. Played 3 years there. And then after that, kind of got right into strength and conditioning world and the coaching world. I was coaching club soccer. I was a graduate assistant at Belmont, where I played. And so I worked with the men's soccer team. That was my primary team, but also women's tennis and women's golf, and kind of got my feet wet with all the Olympic sports there, and got a ton of experience and worked with other really good graduate assistants there that I learned from. Um, did that for 2 years. In the summers between those graduate years, I interned at Vanderbilt with men's basketball with coach Jeremy Anderson. And then the second summer, Texas, also with men's basketball with coach Daniel Roos and Tyler Janota down there in Austin. Amazing experience. Just continued to learn, continued to grow my network, and then was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go up to West Virginia and Marshall in 2019. And again, men's soccer was my primary team, but was also working with volleyball, women's tennis again. And then during my time there, we made that a soccer specific position, and I worked with men's and women's soccer, and I was the performance coach just for the soccer programs there. And really enjoyed my few years there. Had a lot of success, especially on the men's side. Amazing coaching staff there who have built an amazing program, won a national championship in 2021 in the COVID year. And then ultimately just felt like I wanted to continue challenging myself and continue growing. And then had the opportunity to join the newest club at the time in the MLS, which was St. Louis City. And so my wife kind of just moves all around with me. A lot of coaches will know that feeling. A lot of coaches' wives will know that feeling. So then we went to St. Louis, and there I worked as a performance coach for the second team, so the MLS Next Pro team. And I absolutely loved that job because it's a development team. So we have a mix of younger academy age players, and then older pros who have just come out of college and are trying to chase that first team contract. And it just made for a really nice blend of players and people. And again, a really good coaching staff. And I was the performance coach, but also was very kind of active on the field. And with the coaches, and that's something that I tried to always do in my roles at Belmont and at Marshall, and then at St. Louis is, well, at that level you have to be. You're not just the strength coach in the weight room. You're the performance coach, and so you're sitting down with the technical coaches, helping them plan training. You're involved on the field in the warm up and how that warm up links into what the technical coaches are doing in the training session that day. And then had the opportunity after a year or two to join the first team. And so I was a first team performance coach for a year or so. Again, loved that. It was a lot different. And I think ultimately what I learned with that experience is that when you get to that level, as you'll know, you as a performance coach in that kind of environment, you just get a smaller slice of the pie. And so I was responsible for way less than what I used to be responsible for the second team level and at the college level. And so I still loved it. But I just ultimately felt like I wanted to consider getting back into the college game where, don't get me wrong, here at UT, we obviously have unbelievable resources and facilities and a sports science department and an amazing medical department. But as a performance coach, I like doing a little bit of everything that is performance, being a strength coach in the weight room, but being involved on field with movement training there. And then I think most importantly at the college level, being involved in conversations, in meetings with the technical coaches to make sure we get the periodization and the training load right, to get through what is a crazy college season. So that's how I ended up here. Was super excited to get this opportunity back in the spring. I've been here a few months now, and we have a great staff here and building a really good program. So I'm really excited to be back in Tennessee.
Sam, I love that. Honestly, I wish that performance coaches had one foot in the weight room and one foot on
Yeah,
the pitch more often. But I understand. But it allows for better congruency, better connections. You
yeah,
start getting a lot of different roles with people filling those roles, and now there's there's a higher potential for disconnect,
yeah,
for different languages, for different concepts, which could be beneficial in some regards, but I can see it having a drawback in other ways. So yeah, I completely understand your position and how you would really like to be involved, because then what you're doing, like you said it actually better than I could probably ever do it, but what you're doing in the weight room should complement the work that you're doing on the pitch and blend in with the technical aspects and the tacticians, as well as just be able to, well, of course, the weight room. The warm-ups are going to be dictated by your lifts in that regard, but they should also be complementing the skills and drills that you're going to be doing with your athletes on the pitch.
exactly.
So
Yeah. So and that's how we think about periodization as a larger concept for us is just the deliberate organization of training stimulus in order to optimize performance on the field because that's where it matters, but also minimize injury risk. And so whenever we're not thinking about what the girls are doing in the gym and what they're doing on the field as two separate things. It's one thing, it's training. And so, if we're doing a small-sided, what we would call a strength day on the field, an intensive day on the field where the space that they're playing in is restricted, they're playing for short duration, and that we're really pushing intensity on the field. That's a great day for us to lift beforehand, and
why?
by
Why
doing
do
that,
you say that?
we're organized because by doing that, we're organizing and concentrating is a better word, training stimulus into one day. And so, and also within that, that's not to say that would be the only day that we would lift, but that's a day where we might look to perform lower body movements that maybe require more ankle, knee, and hip flexion, deeper ranges of motion, because we know we're going to be sore from what we do on the field. So why not make our high days high, right? We've all heard that. And so like, let's concentrate that kind of stimulus onto one day. If on the next day, which this doesn't happen in season because we don't have 2 days back to back to train hard, if the next day is what we would call an extensive day, or in the soccer world, maybe an endurance day where the spaces are bigger and we're going to elicit more high speed running, more sprint distance on the field, then that would be a day if we were in the gym that day to maybe do some more posterior chain work, do some more hamstring specific work to prepare us for that. So that's the kind of the way we're thinking about periodization. And then obviously in season, it just becomes about preparing for games, and recovering from one game, preparing for the next one. So
Oh man, you're giving me so many things to throw back at you. I love this. So, okay, short-sided games.
Mhm,
It's primarily explosive,
mhm,
short durations, turnaround. So we're going to be targeting mainly the ATP PC chain. We'll get into that lactic threshold, but we're going to keep the reps pretty much on the low end, and we're going to
yeah.
get a little bit more explosive. That's what you're telling me. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the way I think about it is there's certain variables that we can manipulate on the field when we play, and one of those is the space that we play in. Another one is the time that we play for, and another one is the volume. How much of that do we do? And so the smaller the space is, and we would say area per player. So if you think about a full-sided game, 11v11, the field's about 110 yards long. So we're talking about an area of 10 by 6 to 11 by 7 per player, right? If we shrink that down to a 3v3 game, now the field is 30 yards long only and, 15 to 20 yards wide. the intensity is now higher because the number of actions that those players perform is way higher because there's only 3 players. So when there's 11 players, a lot of people think, oh, 11v11, it's the most intense form of the game. Well, it isn't, because you may not get the ball for a few minutes, right? That's not to say you're not moving and you're not sprinting and you're not changing direction. But in a 3v3 game, which is pretty much as small as you would ever go, that's as small as a small-sided game would go. That's the most intense form of the game because the density of actions is the highest. And so yeah, that would be the one extreme. And then we think about small-sided games as 3 to 4 to 5v5. And then medium-sided would be 6 to 7 to 8v8. And then 9, 10, and 11v11 would be large-sided games. And then obviously, like, the smaller the game and the more intense, the less we're going to play for. And so we may play a 4v4 game for 2 minutes, and we're asking them to go all out for 2 minutes, and then we're going to have a short rest, and then we're going to do, if it's off season, maybe we're doing 4 sets of 2 minutes, taking a longer break and doing another block of 4 sets of 2 minutes. In season, we very rarely get a day to train like that. But if we do, it's maybe just a short bout of that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think that's one of the mistakes that you can run into is playing those kind of small-sided games for way too long. Like, I don't think you can really overestimate how intense those games are. And you see kids out there, all levels, playing 3v3 for 5-6 minutes. Well, after a few minutes, it doesn't look much like soccer anymore. It starts to get ugly. And so I think we're always trying to increase the intensity at which our kids are playing at, right? Like, the game is 90 minutes long. We don't need them to play for more than that. So we're not trying to make them play for longer. We're trying to make them play harder within that time. So small-sided games, medium-sided games, large-sided games, they're all a great way to do that. In my opinion, the best way, better than isolated running. But you just have to be able to manipulate those variables, space and time, to get what you want out of it.
Yeah, good. No, it makes complete sense. So on the large side of games, full
Mm-hmm.
pitch, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned you would be focusing mainly on the posterior chain, specifically the hamstring. And so run me through a little bit of hamstring bulletproofing, if you will. Like, are we talking eccentric loads? Are you talking just we're going to go through some isometrics? We'll do some concentrics. We'll do some eccentrics. I mean, what does it
Mm-hmm.
look like in regards to a program?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above. Like, I'm not married to any one of those, and I don't dislike any one of those. I think for us in this environment, it depends a lot on the athlete's training age. And a freshman who comes in who hasn't done much strength training before, but as they've just played soccer their whole lives, that's a completely different situation to a senior who's been in the program for 4 years and has had quality strength training the whole time they've been here. So I see all of those things that you talked about as tools to achieve the same thing, which is robustness in the posterior chain in this instance. Because I mean, like, I think the more I'm in this industry, yes, like, I want to increase performance and optimize performance and enhance performance, but ultimately we need players on the field. And so the injury reduction side of things in this sport and in a college season is just so huge. And so how can we create robustness in the lower body for our population? But yeah, specifically posterior chain, because that's typically where we see more soft tissue injuries. And so I would use all of those things. I think, like, a less advanced athlete, I don't really see any reason to use more advanced methods, such as like heavy eccentric training, even Nordics. For example, this year, I mean, I've only been working with this group for a few months, and so it's hard to kind of put them into buckets as to what kind of training age they're at and what kind of training methods they require. But an example would be the freshman and sophomore group, which I would kind of call more the beginner pathway for us. They may just do something more simple, like a stability ball, glute bridge to leg curl. where we are emphasizing the eccentric portion of the movement, but then the older group are doing partner Nordics, which, doesn't get much more intense than that for an eccentric hamstring load. But I think, but then also, I love the RDL as a movement for soccer players, especially females, because I think that we see a lot of them not able to control the pelvis, especially when we're running at speed. And so being able to lock in the pelvis, have a neutral spine, hinge at the hips properly, and then do that with a load, I think is super valuable for players in our environment. And so I love that. I like to progress that to a barbell deadlift. And then, yeah, single leg movements as well with dumbbells, with kettlebells. I like all of it. I think, I was reading a post from Mike Boyle recently, and he's been talking a lot about hamstring recently. And he's like, for me, he was one of the first strength coaches who I kind of like hooked onto and read all his books and listened to all his stuff, and like is a huge influence on some of my programming. But then I'm like, he was talking about not doing this for hamstrings, and because it's not the way that it is used in sprinting. But I think that it all has value, right? Like if I have a freshman who needs to gain weight and needs to gain strength, I'm going to put her on the standing hamstring curl machine, and we're going to do high repetitions, and we're going to get some volume in there. So to answer your question, I know that's a long-winded answer, but all of the above, I like that, all of it.
No, that's good. Yeah, and Mike has a way of putting out blanket statements and
Yeah,
and building controversy around it. I
yeah,
I totally get it. He
exactly.
doesn't do parallel squats anymore, back
Right.
squats, and so on. And there's some credibility to what he's saying, totally. And
Yeah,
I so along that line too, and I
yeah,
hear what you're saying, by the way. There's no such thing as a bad exercise. It depends upon the person and why you're doing it. If there's a good
exactly.
why behind it, great. So
Yeah,
here's my crux, and you're probably already addressing it in your own fashion. But soccer is multidimensional. It's not a linear. It's not you're running around the track. It's not a 100-yard dash straight on. You're having to juke players at top speed while dribbling a ball and so on. So you're actually not completely in sagittal plane. But yet when we go into the gym, it is so easy to fall prey to only training the hamstrings along the sagittal plane. So I'm just curious, and if you don't, it's no big deal, but I'm wondering, like, when it comes to lunge directions, is there a diagonal? Is there a crossover? Or if you're doing some type of step ups, or if you're doing an RDL single leg, are you driving the torso into different positions to accommodate more practical, like real time scenarios where we're training the nervous system how to decelerate that tissue? What is it like to get those joint capsules into just the position that they'll find themselves in on the pitch? And can we do it in a controlled environment to kind of create a bulletproofing of or resiliency within the tissue and the movement itself?
yeah, definitely, we definitely do some of that. Some of the things you mentioned, a lunge complex is kind of a staple in our warm-up routine. Excuse me. So on days where we're not lifting, we'll always do an activation before we go out onto the field. And that's in the gym area. I mean, you could call it a microdose strength training session, but it's not what we call it. And in that, a staple movement of ours is a lunge complex. I start with body weight, holding a dowel, lunging forward, lunging to the side, crossover lunge, and then adding load to that with a med ball and with dumbbells over time. I love the lunge movement and doing it in all planes for sure. Same with step ups. That's something I've added to my programming, is not just stepping up in a linear fashion, doing it sideways, doing it with a crossover step. But I think like if we want it to transfer to the field, we need to do that on the field. And that's where I think, for me, it's not to say that we're not going to try to train in different planes of motion in the weight room. We're definitely going to do that. We're definitely going to do some things on two legs, some things on one leg, things in different directions, things at different speeds in the gym, but we need to do it on the field as well. And so that's where my role isn't just in the weight room, it's also on the field every day, am responsible for the warm-up, and that warm-up isn't the same every day. It depends what we're doing there on the field. And so one day we might be working on acceleration in the warm-up. And so I might have the run rockets out there, and we're doing different acceleration technique movements and finishing with a short set of resisted sprints. The next day we might be working on max velocity, and we're doing some max velocity technique, and we have the wickets out there, and we're doing a couple of sprints before they go into practice, or it's change of direction, and we're doing different drills like that. So I think, yes, we can address some of those things in the gym, but I like to keep it as simple as I can in the gym to achieve the goal of building robustness and reducing injury risk. And where we can, and as we move into the off season, and as players move through our program and become more advanced, yes, we'll use more advanced methods to, work on physical qualities that are going to transfer to the field more, like speed and power. But for me, that can be addressed on the field right away. We don't have to wait. We can do that as soon as athletes get here, as young as 17 and 18. And so we're doing that kind of every day on the field, in season, off season.
We're just going to take a quick pause from this conversation to acknowledge our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. The Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere with just an iPad or iPhone. No wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. At the forefront of metabolic elite is Jim Lavelle, internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, a chief science officer at Lifetime, and the co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's got over 4 decades of experience and has guided Olympic athletes, professional teams, and leading health institutions. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. Like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption, like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, ZELOS. Let's talk culture a little bit, because you've had the benefit of yourself competing in men's soccer and coaching and being a performance strength coach on that field. And now you've got your experience as a performance coach with women's soccer.
Yeah.
Compare and contrast that if you don't mind, the difference between the two and what they have in similarities.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something the girls here ask me constantly since I got here. What's the difference between training men and women? Do you like training us more than you like training the pro guys? And so I think,
Yes,
yeah,
always the question to that, answer the question, yes, of course I do.
exactly. Yeah, I think one thing that I notice daily is that the girls they like, and this isn't different to men, especially at the professional level, but they like to know why they're doing something. And so if I'm asking them to do something in the gym that they haven't done before, an explanation goes a long way to creating buy-in, especially if it's a foreign movement or something that's new for them. They're just super analytical. They're more analytical than men, I would say, especially when I compare it to the men's group that I've had in college before at Marshall and at Belmont. I would think of them as more, they were just soldiers. Like, I say do this, they do it. I say run through that wall, they do it. And the girls here, they would do it, but they would say they want to know why, and they want a bit of an explanation as well. Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, like, they're high level athletes, and they've been doing this for a long, long time. So there's a lot more similarities than there are differences between the two.
Well, I
And that's
know one, yeah, in regards to gender, well,
yeah.
if we speak internationally, that's I
Okay.
think where we're going to have like a. You answered my question perfectly, by the
Yeah.
way. I loved it, and that's really interesting. Women are a little bit more analytic on the whole, and guys are
Yeah.
just okay, just tack whatever you want me
Yeah.
to. But culturally speaking, U.S. women's sports, Title IX, all that, we have this amazing
Mhm.
tidal wave of
Yeah.
women's sports hitting our shores right now, from the expansion of the NWSL, the WNBA, the numbers and the ticket sales and just it's incredible. And I'm loving every aspect of that. There shouldn't be any reason why that shouldn't be occurring. But where you grew up, it was kind of different. There weren't as many opportunities for girls or young women to participate, or if there were opportunities, you didn't have as many participants, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I think when I was growing up, and I'm 32 now, so we're talking 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, um, girls playing sports was just not as common as boys playing sports. And that's not to say some of them didn't do it. They did, but I think like when I came to the US and saw how big women's sports was at the college level, and then when I was coaching club, at the club level, at the high school level, I realized like it's a cool thing for girls to do in the US is to play sport. And that wasn't the case growing up in the UK and in Europe. And also the sports are just different. And so my wife played volleyball in college and professionally for a while. And when she first came home with me and she would kind of meet some of my friends from home and their wives and their girlfriends, and they'd be like, she'd tell them that she played volleyball. What's volleyball? Like we played netball. What? And she was like, what's netball? Netball's like basketball without bouncing the ball. And so and field hockey is big in Europe for women, but the sports that are big here, basketball, soccer, not so much, but it's definitely changing, and I've noticed that over the last 10 or 15 years. It's becoming more normal. It's becoming more cool and popular to play those sports as a female in the UK and in Europe. And I think the success of England women's national team has helped that. They've been good in the past few major tournaments, and so that's always going to help. So it's becoming more normal, but yeah, definitely like even now trying to explain to family and friends at home how big college sports is here is just it's really difficult to do. I'll go to a women's basketball game or even like, Tennessee football game and take a video and they'll be like, so what team is that? It's like that's Tennessee, University of Tennessee. And that's just hard for people to comprehend because college sports is just, you know, off the chain and not really comparable to anything else anywhere in the world.
No, because you've got academies, right?
Yeah,
And it's outside of the
exactly.
school. In fact, if you
Exactly.
did play at a university in the UK, it's almost like intramurals. Like
It is, yeah.
why would you even do that? I mean, I guess you weren't good enough to go to the academy, so now you're playing for the university. So I can see the confusion there for sure.
Yeah, it's more of a social thing. Playing sports in university in England for the most part is more of a social. Like it's, captain picks the team and go out for 10 or so beers after training and after the game. So, and that's where you're right. Like the pathway to pro in England, for example, is just different. It's you're in an academy, and then if you're offered a contract, you're a professional. If you're not, then you're done and you go to college, you go to university, and that's it. Whereas here, like the pathway to pro is through college for a lot of sports, and that's obviously changing as sports become bigger and soccer, the academy world is growing here, but still, I think
Yeah, I see in probably 10 or 15 years it's going to be just like the
yeah,
UK,
yeah,
where D1 soccer is not going to be the same as academy soccer, whether it's
yeah,
New York Red Bulls or DC United, San Jose Earthquakes. They're all got their academies that they're setting up. And now we've got NWSL where as that money flows in, they'll probably be doing the same and not too far behind them.
yeah.
Okay, Sam, how about this? You have been training your athletes through the season to make it to the tournament.
Hmm.
and you've been doing specific programming to get to the goal. So to the goal wasn't the season so much as it was to qualify for the tournament. And now the tournament's about to begin. How is it that you need to change your programming in terms of in the weight room and maybe on the pitch as well? But now that you're there, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, I think I mean, just to kind of give you a little bit of a background of what in-site training looks like in the gym for us, what's the strength training side of things. We're typically going to play 2 games a week, 1 game a week sometimes. Um, but typically, like we have like a 2 to 3 to 4 day turnaround between games. And so,
Wednesday, Saturday, kind of Wednesday, Saturday is
yeah,
usually your
Thursday,
Thursday,
Sunday, or
Sunday. Yeah.
Friday to Sunday, or Sunday to Thursday, that kind of thing is usually what we're working on.
So
But
a
then
match day minus
NCAA,
two and match day plus two. And
exactly. NCAA have expanded the length of the college season to allow for more 1 game weeks, which obviously helps a lot, and it means you can train more and recover more between games. But yeah, there's definitely match congestion. It's a very concentrated season, but we will. If a typical week for us would be playing on a Thursday and playing on a Sunday, and so we will have been off on the Monday because we would have played on the previous Sunday, and then on Tuesday we'll lift, and everyone will lift. It's match day +2 for those players who played on Sunday, but we've got to get it in at some point, and so that's the day we're going to do it. Um, Obviously, like it's lower body focused because that's what they're using around the field, but it's full body training stimulus. And then we'll play on the Thursday, and then we'll be back in the gym on the Friday. Now, if you're a high minute player, that lift is going to look way different to if you're a low minute player. If you're a low minute player, it's a second lift. If you're a high minute player, there's recovery modalities involved in that. Are we loading them in some movements? Yes, but it's not the same as the low minute players, just because we can't continue to add stress if they've already playing 2 games and training throughout that week. If we're lucky enough to have a 1 game week, then everyone would have 2 real strength training sessions within that week. And so that's kind of the in-season training period for us. Now we're in the postseason. Um, it's it's much the same. I would just say that like where we really um, change and begin to taper is on the field. In the gym, in season, we're not kind of like we're not pushing and pushing and pushing and increasing volume and intensity throughout the year. We're trying to maintain qualities that we've hopefully built in the off season and in the preseason anyway. So that's kind of more constant. But on the field at this time of year, over the last couple of weeks, we begin to really just make sure that um, the the heavy stimulus is coming from games. We're not gaining fitness. We're not gaining conditioning on the field um, at this time of year
so,
of training. The
so
players are going to get the conditioning stimulus from the games. Um, and so low minute players will run top up sessions for sure, match day +1. But we're not really finding any training sessions in the week where we're pushing the team as a whole, because at this point in the season, we can look at metrics like our counter movement jump that we perform weekly, or I can look at their GPS metrics to see that nobody is trending up at this time of year. Hopefully, we're maintaining where we were, and we're just trying to keep them there as long as we can throughout the postseason.
yeah, I could see increasing your regen programs
Yeah.
and just keeping the lifts at a moderate intensity level, like you say, trying to just maintain. But honestly, you've been through the entire season. This is the
Hmm.
time where restorative practice could really come into play to
Yeah.
maintain strength, speed, coordination, and so on. Um, so you mentioned something though that made me wonder, like, so your your starters, your 11 starters, they don't rotate too much. I mean, the coaching staff doesn't have two several people coming in and several players subbing in. So I could see maybe 13 players being your high at the most, your high volume or your high times. And then
Yeah.
how big's your roster? Maybe 18,
No,
19?
bigger than that. So
Oh, it is.
we have 30 on the roster right now. It will become 28 at some point in the future, but 28 is kind of standard for a college soccer program at this point. With all the changes in the landscape of college sports, everyone's going to be a little bit different depending on how many scholarships they can offer and how big their roster is going to be. But yeah, but you're right. About 13 to 14 players are typically after a game what I would deem as high minute players. And I'm not just looking at the minutes, we're looking at GPS metrics to see how much distance they ran, how much of that was high speed distance, how much of that was sprint distance, how many high intensity accelerations and decelerations they're doing. And I'm looking at that in the game, but like right after the game, so that after the game, we're meeting as a coaching staff to plan the next day's training. And we have, okay, this is the high minute group. They're doing regen tomorrow. And then this is the low minute group who need to have a top up training session. And then that's what our match day +1 would look like. It would be
Got
a
it.
split group scenario and different people doing different things to get ready for the next game.
I'm kind of stunned by the number you just gave me, though, in terms of how many players are on the roster,
Yeah.
28 to 30. Is that because many of them are redshirted and they're on the squad, but they're playing with the team, but they're actually not competing until next year or whatever? I mean, how does that?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Some will, like usually like a handful will redshirt coming in as a freshman. So they'll save that year of eligibility. So they'll be here for 5 years and push that year back. But also I think it's just the nature of the college game and the substitution rules. So obviously in professional football around the world, it used to be, well, back in the day, it was no substitutions, then it was 3, and now it's 5. But in the college game, I think the limit might be 18 or 20. But
Substitutions?
the players who can play in the game,
Oh
and
my gosh.
you can
So
roll
we're
them in.
talking 7 subs, up to 7 subs.
Yeah, and you can roll them in and roll them out. And so let's say we start with 11 players on the field. You can sub in the first half. They come out, players go in. You get no re-entry in the first half of the game. But in the
But you
second
can
half,
re-enter in the second.
you can re-enter in the second half. And then in the second half of the game, you get a re-entry. So you can go in, come back out, go back in again in the second half. And
Oh,
so because
that
of that,
changes the strategy completely.
exactly. And it changes the intensity of the game as well, right? Because like
So
literally
much higher.
if we're trying to, for example, we're trying to press from the front with our forward players, are trying to press the opposition back line. As soon as one of our players isn't able to do that at the intensity we want them to, we have the ability to take them out and put someone else in who can do it, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes, to get the other player a rest and then get them back in. And so because another team is doing that, we need to do that as well. And I think it also depends on how coaches want to build their roster with the scholarships that they have available. They could choose to put their money into a certain amount of players, or they could choose to split that. And now we're moving into a world where certain schools have more scholarships than others. And so it all kind of depends what the coach's method is. But yeah, it's not as simple as 11 players playing and a couple of subs going in. And so
I
that's why
had
it
no
takes a little
idea.
bit more analysis on the back end to say not only who's played how many minutes, but how intense were those minutes, because you could play 20 minutes at a super high intensity, and that's going to elicit more of a physical load than possibly someone who played more minutes but didn't do as much in the game. So
Sounds like the rugby sevens almost. That
yeah.
sounds so, I mean, honestly, that sounds more exciting to me
Yeah.
because it just brings up the speed of the game, the intensity of the game. I had
Yeah.
no idea that you could restart. That's or re-enter. That is
Yeah.
so so that in itself completely changes, and not completely, but it definitely has a massive effect on what you're looking at GPS and
Hmm.
and how you're programming it. Kind of like what you just said, really. I guess I'm just repeating you. So so it's also looking at profile characteristics of the athlete in regards to who can who yeah, it's almost like in baseball, who's going to be my starting and relief pitchers?
Hmm.
Who can really perform in a very short period of time versus those that perform well for longer durations.
Exactly.
So, wow. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we might have a player who, um, they have a really high sprint speed and they have a really high repeat sprint ability. But maybe what they need to work on is their aerobic system and their ability to repeat those actions for a long time. But we can still use them because we can put them in there for 5, 10, 15 minutes and ask them to do that job at max intensity for a short amount of time. So yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely has tactical implications as well as physical.
Okay. Positionally,
Hmm.
with the exception of your keeper, uh, do you feel it necessary to adjust program, workload, volume, intensity to the other 10 players? Like your forwards, the midfielders, defenders, like do you separate that in any way off the pitch in regards to like the training protocols, or is it pretty much homogenous?
It's pretty much homogenous in the gym. I think goalkeepers are definitely different. I mean, a goalkeeper is a different sport to an outfield player. So the way that they
Completely.
train in the gym definitely looks different, especially as they increase in training age. Uh, like the physical qualities that we're trying to develop are different.
Teach me. What do you mean?
Well, a goalkeeper is a speed and power sport, right? We want them to be as explosive as possible and be able to do that in different planes of motion, but primarily to the left and right and down low and up high. And so that's way different to an outfield player who we want to be able to run in a straight line fast, cut and change direction fast, and repeat those actions at high intensity as possible for as long as possible. And so their strength training will definitely begin to look different. For everyone else, I think it's pretty similar. Where it differs is their physical load on the field and the training load that we require for them in the off season, to be able to push fitness and push conditioning, but then also in season, um, to make sure that they're working within the parameters that are suitable for their position. So, it will depend on playing style and the team you're playing in, but typically, a centre back is not going to cover as much distance as a wide fullback who's going to get up and down the sideline. Typically, a central midfielder is going to cover a lot of distance, a lot of ground, but not as much high speed distance and sprint distance as a wide player or a forward. So that's where there's differences in the physical demands and the positional demands of the game itself. And so working backwards from that, because we always kind of work backwards from a game. If a game is 100% demand, training is always something below that. And so it's not just 100% is the same for everyone across the board, right? 100% for our fullback is different to what is 100% for our central midfielder. And we're definitely considering that when we're planning training for the week in season and off season.
Right on.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Uh, so the keepers,
Hmm.
they're obviously three steps, one step. We're talking, of course, they can run out of the box. There's plenty of room for them to move, but ultimately, when it's on the line, whether it's PKs or anything else for that matter, it's really just in almost instinctive reaction time at the quickest possible. So aside from just drilling balls at them and having them react from different angles and all that, what other aspects of conditioning will complement that? Specifically in the weight room, if you're doing anything with them, do you have some kind of neuro drills, reaction drills, or you just leave that to the pitch and we're just going to focus on fundamental strength and mobility?
Yeah, I think a lot of um, the reactive drills are going to be the responsibility of the goalkeeper coach. Now, we work closely together as I do with all the technical coaches to, have an open dialogue about what that training looks like and how it complements what we're doing in the gym and off the field. I think how my training off the field would change throughout a goalkeeper's time in our program would be, um, to begin with, I think, like any athlete, building foundational strength is going to create the foundation for building power and building speed on top of that, right? And for a goalkeeper, I just think we need to get to that power and speed more quickly, because they don't require the robustness in terms of strength that the outfield players do, because they're not going to be under the same physical loads in terms of high speed running and sprint distance and covering distance, right? So we can check the box of they're robust enough and they're strong enough. Now let's work on some more advanced strength training methods, whether that be specific speed training, accommodated resistance, whatever that might be. I just think with goalkeepers, we can get there earlier and get to that specialized strength training more quickly than outfield players. And
if
definitely
anything,
different planes of motion for sure, right? Like, and again, not dissimilar to an outfield player, but goalkeepers are moving to their left and right and off one leg. And so the more we can train like that, I think the more specific that's going to be to the adaptations we want to drive.
Yeah, honestly, I could just imagine just putting resistance harness or harness with resistance
Yeah,
bands on one side of the goal and just loading them on one side and
yeah,
then switch it over to the other side and just
yeah.
having them feel what it's like to be loaded in real time on the pitch and just give them a
Right.
little bit more to feed that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Ah,
And then I think, like, from the conditioning side of things, obviously it's way different than an outfield player, and so um, we want to train them like anaerobic athletes, right? Because that's essentially what they are. They make an explosive action and then they get to rest for quite a long time before they do it again. So they're not going to train the same energy systems as an outfield player who has to repeat those actions over and over again. And so I think the ability to perform an action as explosively as possible is anaerobic, and then some capacity is required to repeat that for sure, but they're getting rest between it. And so that's how we would build conditioning programs for them. It would look way different to an outfield player.
yeah. Oh, Sam, I just love chatting up a storm with you because you just got some great responses and you taught me quite a few things here in this conversation. Uh, So if people want to connect with you, of course they can follow the Lady Vols and during the tournament here that's kicking off just a couple days. But LinkedIn, do you have anything on social media that you post like Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Just my name on LinkedIn. You should be able to find me. And then on Instagram, I'm SB Training. I used to post a lot more training content than I do these days. Like when you
Now
get,
it's all babies.
well, yeah, now it's all somebody with a professional camera comes into the weight room or comes out onto the pitch and films it for me. So I'm not going to get my iPhone out and start filming someone doing a set of, whatever we're doing in the gym that day. But yeah, SB Training on Instagram, and one day maybe I'll get back in the off season to putting some content up there. So
Fantastic. Okay. I've just got one last question. I'm out here in Santa Cruz, California. For the listening audience, they're well aware that I surf almost every day of the year here.
mhm.
And when you mentioned Isle of Man, I'm like, okay, there's one place that I want to go to. Not known for their surfing, maybe not as much as the Outer Hebrides, which if I'm going to
Yeah,
be over there, I might as well make it but there's Barrel Rock and there's like a beginner spot called Gansey.
yeah,
Yeah, in relation to, I'm sure it's a small island, so you probably
yeah.
know Barrel Rock.
Yeah, and I know Ganzi. I was gonna, as soon as you mentioned surfing, I know you're a surfer, and that's like the one spot that people go to if they wanna do some surfing on the Isle of Man. It's not the most popular activity to do there because the Irish Sea is pretty cold and pretty rough, but I guess that's good
Oh,
for surfing.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, keep the
get
crowds at
get your
bay.
wetsuit on,
So
you'll
who
be all right.
knows? Okay, if I find myself heading over there, I'm gonna touch back, reach back out to you and
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and get the information on where to stay and all that. But man,
Yeah,
Sam, I just thank you again for coming on to the Zealous podcast, and I good luck with the tournament. And I hope you make it to the finals, and you and your Lady Vols are gonna crush it.
thank you. I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on.
And there we go, another episode in the books. Man, that was so much fun talking to Sam. I wish the Vols, the Lady Vols, well when they get into the playoffs. Remember, you can check out a whole bunch of things on my website, including the fact that we've got webinars coming up in February, conferences, and a whole bunch more. RockySnyder.com. Let's just check in with our sponsors one last time and have a great week. Remember to check out metabolicelite.co. Check out all the products they have on their website. Synapsin Pro is something I've been using to help stay focused without having to over-caffeinate myself. It keeps me in the zone so I can just really hone in on the things I need to achieve without feeling like, man, I got to reach for an energy drink every 5 minutes. Metabolicelite.co. And don't forget, Kinetic IQ. They've got markerless motion capture for morons like me. I can use their product with my iPhone or my iPad. I can look at posture analysis, movement analysis of any exercise, gait analysis. It gives me everything I could possibly want when tracking people's movements. So, check out kineticiq.com.